merci à Bas BIJLSMA d'avoir répondu à notre invitation. Donc, nous sommes à une poignée de jours maintenant du scrutin du 17 mars 2021 qui va voir les élections législatives à la Tweede Kamer, donc la Chambre basse, qui est l'équivalent de l'Assemblée nationale pour la France. 150 députés, 150 sièges à pourvoir. On est en pleine campagne électorale. Merci donc d'avoir répondu à l'invitation. La discussion sera en anglais pour permettre à Bas
participer
et de se faire comprendre. Donc, merci de poser également vos questions en anglais si c'est le cas. Et sinon, dans la conversation, vous nous mettez le texte et j'en ferai la traduction au besoin. So, Bas BIJLSMA, thank you very much for having us for this chat. We're just few days ahead of the legislative general election for the Tweede Kamer. You're number 38 on the list of the PvdA, the Party van de Arbeid.
Number 37, because I mean, normally people are happy when they jump the list, but the reason was a kind of a sad one because our leader had to leave actually in January. So with him leaving, we all skipped a place and we end up one place higher. So that's how I became number 37.
All right. So number 37, just let us know where are the issues in Netherlands and how it works, because we haven't exactly the same system. Of course, our number of MPs are much broader. We have not 150, but more than 5,000. It's a proportional system, and mainly because I will put the description, and thanks to Wikipedia, we can have the explanation of the Twitter system. Yeah. Mainly, what are the issues for PvdA?
Yeah. So thanks for organizing this and for inviting me. It's always great to discuss these issues also outside of your own country, with people from outside of your own country, and of course, particularly with our friends within the European framework and within the European Party of Socialists. So thanks for organizing this. For me, it also feels a little bit like a home game, since I am a member for our party for the PES, for the European Socialist Party delegation. So I am often involved with preparing stuff for our leader. For example, when she joins the PES leaders meeting, for example. So I'm quite involved also in the discussions within the PSE, and those are always great and also help us nationally to make sure that we're on the right track, and also to get inspiration from others. So happy to be here, and great to have this conversation. So we are actually now in the hot phase of the campaign. It's really getting started now. We have 16 days left. Actually, less, because we start voting a little bit early, already on the 15th, due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And I mean, like all of us, COVID has affected our country a lot as well. And what you see is that also much of the elections are focusing on this. And in a way, that's good, of course, because it's a really key issue, and it's hurting many people. It's also a social democratic issue, a social issue, because even though the virus itself doesn't discriminate, the way it impacts people, differences per person, people who are already suffering from health issues, people who already had a more difficult start in life, people who are living in poor neighborhoods, we see that they are hurt the most, right? They suffer the most. So it's good that this is such a central issue during the elections, because our solutions and our answers, focusing on vulnerable people, helping them, investing in healthcare to ensure that not only everybody gets the best healthcare that they deserve, but also have access to our healthcare system. So that's good. But and there's also quite some rightful critique on our government, because they're really slow with the vaccination programs. And this is really an issue, because the only way to get out of the pandemic is we all get this vaccine. It's national issues. It's a European issue, of course, because we are in it together and we have to make sure that all of us get the vaccines. But if you ask me, it's also an international issue, because we have to make sure that also poorer countries in the world who can't afford it, who are last in line in buying vaccines, also get access to enough vaccines. Of course, in their interest, but it's also in our own interest, because only if they are vaccinated, we can go on holidays again. Our companies can work abroad again, and we can benefit from all the international exchanges that we all care about. So it's good. But on the other side, there's more in life than COVID, and you see that in our campaign now, because of all this attention to the COVID-19 pandemic, issues like climate change, affordable housing, particularly for young people, investing in social security, job security, higher wages, like all these key social democratic issues, it's really hard to get them across at this moment, because everybody is so much focused on COVID-19. So we're struggling with this. Our leader is doing a great job in getting the message across. Today we had amazing news that our election program in the Netherlands, we have this tradition that that political parties, or most of them, have an independent body assessing all the election programs and their impacts on societies. And we already thought, of course, that we have the best election program, but this morning the news came that actually we are among the parties that create the most jobs, that make sure that living standards will improve the most for people, that they will earn more and after taxes have more money to spend for themselves. We are the major taxer of multinationals, large corporations, and rich people in our country. So these are all kinds of great things that hopefully also help us in our election campaign, and also to address all the issues that are also so important for young people, for people who are earning lower wages, working really hard, and make sure that the issues that are important for them are also part of our campaign.
Yeah, great. Yeah, and I just then send the last poll, and in the last poll you're credited of more than 3 seats in addition, so I'm going to 12 seats. You start quite low, huh? Because currently you have how many? 9?
9.
9
yes,
MPs on 150. So it's rather short, but we experience it too. Huh? We have only 31 MPs in the National Assembly right now. So we are very similar. That means starting very low with some contest about the, previously at least, about the political line we had, and try to gain step by step confidence among our voters.
Yeah.
Is there any, because there is also a competition with between the place of Paris. Usually there is a competition between Netherlands and France, but we as French, we don't know it. But there, the question is, in fact, is about Brexit and the impact of the Brexit because you have a very open economy and very free trade policy, usually, much more than us here in France. What is the impact? And has it been seen as something positive for Netherlands, or Netherlands take some advantages of the fact that the city in London is more not collapsing but fading away? Let's start with this.
Yeah, I mean, we see Brexit as a disaster. I mean, for all of us in Europe, because our unity makes us stronger. And of course, the Brits are for the Netherlands, they are a large neighbor, for you guys as well, of course. We have long historical connections with the British people. I personally feel very much connected with them. I actually lived in London for a while. And of course, in terms of trade and our economic relationships, Brexit is a disaster, hurting businesses, and then of course also employees in the UK and in Europe. So yeah, so it's sad that this is happening, but of course it's the choice of the British people, and in a way we also have to respect that, of course. Having that said, in terms of sort of geopolitics and European cooperation within the EU, there are some upsides as well, where I think we might have a little bit more space now for more progressive politics. And from the perspective of the Netherlands, you see that many, particularly the center-right parties, were usually sort of hiding behind the backs of the Brits when tough issues were discussed. And now it forces us to be out there, you know, like to move towards center stage, to be closer to the French, to the Germans, to others, and also to come up with our own ideas and defend those within the European context. And I think that is a positive development. I'm really in favor of closer collaboration with the French on all kinds of issues. But my expertise is in international affairs, human rights, international peace building, and conflict prevention. And there, I think also we need to work a lot more closer with the French, also in terms of European defense, for example. So yeah, there are some upsides, but to me, Brexit is 95% a disaster. Yeah.
Yeah, all right. I've seen that you have created data for peace and security.
That's correct.
And on this, because there were very few casualties, and in fact none in the MH17. It's an issue, no? Or at least in the relationship between Netherlands and Russia in the international arena. Something that we were aware more or less because it was an horrific event. But not as much as, of course, for the Dutch people. What kind of impact does it has? The relationship, the fact that most of the far right movements are very keen towards Putin, and the fact that in the Dutch campaign, we are witnessing something like a slight step-by-step or a strengthening of former far rights who are changing their suit, or but still it's true in Portugal, it's true in Spain, it's true in France. Not really in France. We have this Front National still, and you have not political competitors coming from the more than the, but it's true in Italy too. What's the situation there? So two questions, in fact, huh? Far right, the way it exists and how you handle this in a term that, according to the poll, social democracy embodied by you, by PvdA, is gaining, but also far right too. And the second part of the question is international arena, the relationship with the I would say Soviets, with the Russia.
Yeah. Yeah. So on the far right, of course, this is a serious development, and also something that feels very personal for us, because we feel that in the first wave of sort of populist movements within our country, it were actually a lot of our voters, people who had been voting for the Social Democratic Party for a long time, who switched to those kinds of parties. Partly, I think, because they felt a little bit ignored in terms of their position, their job security, in terms of who is being taxed and who is not, in terms of employers and businesses getting more and more privileges, and like the normal guy, the normal men and women, were paying more and more taxes every year. And out of this frustration, I think many left. And I think this is for us personal, because we feel that we had to be there for these people, right? And losing them was sort of attacking the core of our raison d'être, I would almost say. So and now what you mostly see is that many of the extremist populist parties are really right wing, and even some are really like dangerously right wing. And they're actually competing more now with the center right parties and the liberal right parties for votes. I think for us, one of the issues is that we have great progressive values, but many of the people that we are fighting for share those values in terms of socioeconomic progress, but not so much in terms of socio-cultural progress. So they're more hesitant and more scared, I would say, about the influx of migrants, refugees, but also more sort of identity political issues, which the right has successfully put in the center of our political discussions for a long time now, and thereby sort of increase this gap between us and the people we are working for, right, every day. So this is hard, but at the same time now, actually this is also an effect of Brexit. You see that people are believing more and more again in international cooperation, in fixing things together, because also because of the Putins of this world, who are becoming more and more aggressive and demonstrate less and less respect for international rights, for human rights every day. People feel a bit more insecure, and when you do so, you start to sort of look again for who your friends are and come back together again. And so this is also, I think, a trend that we are also seeing now, which is hopeful for us as a political movement, but also for us as European societies. And I think you mentioned the downing of flight MH17. This was, of course, for us a traumatic event, because almost 200 Dutch people died that day over the skies of eastern Ukraine. And it really woke many in our country up that we really have to be more careful to defend ourselves against people like Putin and others who are trying to undermine our democracies, but also to work harder to invest in diplomacy, to invest in international cooperation, to prevent these kinds of wars that we have seen in Ukraine, that we've seen for a long time in the Middle East, in North Africa, and elsewhere. because there's many people suffering from those wars, but at the same time, it's also affecting us and our societies. So yeah, I mean, we have a famous football player, Johan Cruyff. He, a famous saying of his is that every downside has its upside, and well, this is one where an unfortunate situation fortunately generated a larger realization that we have to invest in international solidarity, and we cannot limit ourselves to becoming too nationalistic and focusing only on ourselves. And for me, actually, I built my campaign about highlighting the work of people who I see as allies for international security, who are doing great work, holding multinationals accountable for human rights abuses in Nigeria, elsewhere, working to eradicate child labor, etc. And for me, I always use a quote of Eisenhower, who says, a people who trades its principles for its own privileges will soon lose both. And I really believe in this. Like, our futures, not only between groups of people in the Netherlands, in Europe, but also globally, are so much linked to each other. And therefore, we have to fight for international solidarity. And that's one of my personal objectives for this campaign as well.
All right. We have attending here the discussion, someone you know, because Pierre Canuti is also attending presidency of the PES. I give him the floor to have some, if he has some question.
Thank you. Merci, Alexander. Thank you. Hello, Bas. Good to have you here with us on this beautiful sunny Monday, and I hope this will also spring not only for the weather but also for your party, because we are obviously monitoring what is going on in your country, because you made a big surprise in the last European elections, where we shared in common a very disastrous result in the latest legislative elections in 2017. And you made a surprise with France during the European elections with an important breakthrough, and it was a sign that being below the 6% threshold, which is not now, let's say, the death squad for us, is not forever. And then it can also be just a small moment, and you were able to make concrete reforms and to show that you were still an important party. And it is interesting for us because when we look at the political landscape in the Netherlands, it is very similar to our situation, because you also have a socialist party in your country, but it is not exactly like us, because your socialist party is more like Mélenchon's party for us, left wing, very left wing, radical left. And you also have a strong Green Party, which is also strongly rooted in the middle class groups. And so it is very similar to our situation, and also a very threatening right-wing movement. And what is important in your country that we did not experience yet is that the PVV has serious competitors now. And what we have in France is the competition is inside the Le Pen family, with Marine Le Pen and her niece, even if her niece does not have a current organization now, but she's working on intellectuals. And it is very important because today, my comrades can also confirm that, you can never have a single debate on TV without commentators or guests from the right wing. And it is all over the news all day long, and it is very, very, very oppressing, and it is framing the political agenda. And the government today, Macron, is trying now to move to the right wing, pretending that he's only protection against Le Pen. And you know what it is to be threatened by flooding event in your country. This is the same for us on a political thing. I wanted to ask you a question about the impact of the COVID crisis, mostly in terms of protests, because we saw there were protests in your country, which is not a very natural thing in your country. We are getting used to strikes and violences in the street and violent demonstrations, but in your country, it doesn't happen very often. Maybe not since the Provo movement 50 years ago. So I would like to ask you about this movement, the roots, what is behind, what can be behind this movement, who can also take benefit from it, even if I know that the PVV did not support it, but what can you tell us about it?
Yeah, thank you. I think many of us in the Netherlands were also as surprised as you were about these waves of protests. But in a sense, it's like a little bit like the Yellow Vests movement, I think, in France, where a relatively small group of people feels relatively a lot of exclusion from society. Other people getting more and more opportunity, more and more sort of, they do see a lot of people who are progressing in their lives, because that's also something that we sometimes forget, because of the right-wing extremists are presenting our country as if it's one big chaos zone, a war zone almost, where everything is destructed. But we shouldn't forget that our societies are amongst the most prosperous in the world, amongst the safest in the world. Our peoples are the most happiest in the world. Actually, and that's, so I think we also should be proud as socialist movements, because we are the ones who built those societies. Every social welfare system that exists in Europe is built by us. So I also feel that we, in all those discussions with extremists on TV, on the radio, we should be more outspoken about this, because if you vote for us, this is what you get. If you vote for them, you get chaos. So, but having that said, there is a lot of frustration amongst people, and they more and more feel as if they can't channel it right through the normal channels that were there in the past. And we are a country where employers and employees are used to work quite closely together, actually. And the elites were always, I think, relatively sensitive to issues within society. But nowadays, the system has changed, and people feel a lot more left alone, because in the past they were part, for example, of the pillar in our society that was dominated by Catholics or by, like by socialists, and they knew the channels within this pillar to discuss the issues that they cared about, and they felt that at least those people, even though they were privileged, were doing something for them. But now there is quite a group of people who really feel left out, and they don't know where to go. They feel politicians aren't listening, companies are betraying them, where others are gaining, they are losing their jobs. And if they have a job, it's more insecure. They can be fired every day, right? So and that's why I also mentioned housing. This is really a key issue as well. I'm from The Hague, but I live in Amsterdam for quite a while now. Amsterdam is becoming an exclusive zone for tourists and rich people. It's almost impossible if you're young to buy a house in Amsterdam, to rent a house if you're a student. So everybody who isn't earning a lot is being pushed out of the city, and this generates a lot of resentment, and then that will lead to anger, and then you see these types of protests. And it's also concerning because I think this also has pushed away legitimate criticism of the way our government is handling the COVID-19 pandemic. Because, like I said, we are one of the slowest in Europe with vaccination programs. This is incredible because we're a small country. We are a country where everybody is living very closely to each other. So it should be, and we are great in logistics. So if there should be one country in Europe where it's easy to vaccinate everybody quickly, it should be us. But our government is failing. So I'm actually surprised that there isn't more legitimate criticism towards our government about how they're handling the COVID-19 crisis. And I think one of the reasons is that they're talking about the crazy folks who are protesting. And if you're critical, you don't want to be pushed in that corner, right? Of the people who are denying, who are saying that COVID-19 is a conspiracy by the elites. People who are denying that COVID-19 even is a problem, or etc. So that makes it hard for legitimate critics to take part of these discussions.
All right, we have also a candidate, someone who has been candidate twice in France and in Portugal, Nathalie de Oliveira. I give you the floor.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, hi.
Hi, nice to meet you, and thank you for all these details, because we are continually reading many things, but when we are not living in all the countries, sometimes we miss important issues, and being so close this important election anyway for our common values, you know, for progressists. I just two questions. One regarding probably the extreme right and the way it is gaining ground in the Netherlands as well. Anyway, because do you think that it's there is a basic common method to gaining ground in the heads of people regarding, of course, social situation for many people? You told us about the difficulty to rent or to buy something close to the cities, and probably living far away from the cities. It's as the same really becoming difficult. Do you think that there is some specificities in the Netherlands linked to the growth of the extreme ideas? Or do you think there is something common in all over the other European countries? Because in Portugal, we have been an exception. And now there is just one guy screaming out day after day, and well, putting Democrats in a very difficult situation as well for the forthcoming election, because we are going to vote in October for the cities, and he is preparing many candidates, and we are wondering how this guy from of course the basic common ground of extreme ideas succeeded in gaining so much ground in so quick time, you know. So do you think there is something common to all the other European countries, and are there some specific details regarding cultural background in Netherlands? Or I am thinking of immigration for every country of Europe, but because there is always an internal enemy, and besides us with the neighbors, the same enemies. And the second question is regarding the union budget. Do you think that there is still a true chance of hope to work together with this budget, and particularly regarding the recovery fund? What do you think about that? Probably linked to Netherlands and the project dreamt by the left in the Netherlands. So two questions basically.
Yeah, and we can talk for 2 weeks about it. So I'll try to be brief. To start with, sort of the really extremist right-wing nationalist movements, they are generating a lot of noise. But if you look at the polls, fortunately, they are still at maybe about 3 or 4 seats. So happily, they are not a mass movement yet. But Pierre mentioned the PVV. They are a lot bigger, and they probably also get more seats in the election. And they are they are extremists, but at least they are working within the system. And even, you know, like their leader has said things that are bordering to racism. In a way, it's still within limits, and Wilders, their leader, does still show clear signs that he is also still agreeing with the system and being able to work within the system. So there are some upsides. What is worrying me at the moment is that these new nationalist extremist parties also seem to have clearer links to sort of old elites within the country. Whereas the PVV is more like a mass movement linking to like your ordinary guy. These really extremist parties seem to also tap into more like wealthy families or that kind of groups of people. And you know, like when I don't want to be too dark here, but if you look at the past, those are really difficult developments as well. You know, like if you have parts of the conservative elites backing these types of parties, then that can become really problematic. So fortunately, they're still quite small now, the really dangerous ones. But we have to admit that the PVV, that they're about let me think, like 15-20% of our electorate. So that's a large group of people supporting them. I think what's in common is that what we already discussed a little bit, that throughout Europe there are people who feel left behind, who felt that regular political parties weren't fighting hard enough for them. And to be honest, if I look at ourselves in the Netherlands, maybe they were also right in some ways. So I think for us, at least, the challenge is now is to become again the activist movement that we were in the past. And I think for sometimes we were a little bit too laid back on these issues. And so that's why I'm also happy with our new leader. And I think that works really well, that she's more like a pit bull. When there is injustice, she's also addressing this, whether it's in the Netherlands or outside of the Netherlands, whether it's something that many people will agree to, but also in cases where you'll see that many people will be more skeptical. And I think we have to be a little bit more ballsy again. I'm talking for us. I can't judge about our comrades in other countries, but at least for us, I think we have to be a bit more ballsy again in addressing the issues that hurt people in their ordinary lives, and not be too sort of bureaucratic, and not be so much as a policy officer, and be more political activists again. And I think that helps to build new connections with the people who are in some cases suffering, and also caring about how the changing world affects their families and their friends, right? So I think that's really important.
I come back on the second question of Nathalie, on the, maybe not on the budget, but on the recovery funds. The fact that Mark Rutte, the Prime Minister, was very pushy, very reluctant not to have this recovery funds to be too big, to be too easing the recovery. In fact, does that did it have an impact electorally? I mean, or is it something very shared among the electorate, among Dutch people, that we should be very frugal, and it's the term here, but in France we don't say frugal to qualify them. It's to say radin. That means really, really reluctant, and it's not positive in that way. So, is it shared, or is it either room of maneuver for the PvdA to express more solidarity, because it's our common values among Europeans, and it's through this channel of solidarity that we will all recover?
Yeah, of course, I agree with you, and apologies for not answering this question. I got so excited about all these extremists that I had forgotten to answer this question. But um, of course, I agree, and our party as well. You need international solidarity to sort of build back stronger, right, after the COVID-19 pandemic, and for this purpose, we were strong supporters for the budget, for the recovery fund. Having that said, the reason why our Prime Minister Mark Rutte from the center-right party was so reluctant is that one, we had elections coming up. So for his electorate, he had to do this because they demand this from him. But it's also more generally, and of course he had to defend his right flank from the populists on this issue. But it's also a more general issue where you see that the sentiment within the Dutch population was quite broadly skeptical towards this recovery fund. And that's worrisome because that means that they weren't convinced enough of the need for international solidarity. At the same time, in the sort of the public debates about this, there were also many people making this strong, and also even more conservative economists making the strong case for showing more solidarity. Not only, of course, for sort of from our common values, but also from economic points of view, right? If Italy is in a deep recession, we will also suffer, and particularly as the Netherlands, you've already said we have such an open economy, an internationalized economy. We would definitely feel the effects of that as well. So that's why also quite some people supported the recovery fund, but I think traditionally the Dutch are skeptical about these issues, and also now, you know, like with the Brits leaving the EU, this also forced our prime minister and our government to be more out there and to be actually such a rude, to take such a rude and frugal position. So I think the international critique on our government was very rightly being done, and yeah, we were supporting this fund, but yeah, hopefully after the elections, our voice will be stronger, even more stronger.
And moving around on this, so we see that in fact, PvdA has a good start in a way. The very first start was quite shaky, but thanks to the switch and the arrival of Liliane Ploumen on the forefront, so you're in a, how can we help? Because we are activists and we are socialists, we want the PvdA victory. What can we do here in France or elsewhere around Europe in order to help PvdA to gain seats?
I mean, of course, on the short term, making sure that your people also raise the issues of affordable housing, affordable healthcare, job security, etc., fair wages, raising the minimum wage, those kind of issues. If they're raised elsewhere, that also helps us to raise it during the campaign in the coming days and weeks as well. So raise your voice, I would say, and make sure that everybody in the Netherlands hears you, because that really supports us to address these issues during the campaign as well. But of course, if our movement in Europe, and also looking a little bit further ahead, the stronger we get, the easier it will also be for us in the next national elections to drive home our points and to bring our ideals a little bit closer. And yeah, I think also on the European stage, I mean, for us, for example, it helps when people like Frans Timmermans raise their voice about climate change, addressing climate change, also not in a way that it disrupts our societies, but in a way that it makes our societies stronger, that the costs are being paid by multinationals, people who earn the most, and people who are actually contributing the most to climate change, and not ordinary folks who are just living a normal life, right? So I think that really helps. And of course, you also have many prominent figures who can help raise those issues, and also show to people that we can change our world in a way that helps them and strengthens them, and makes Europe more fairer for all of us.
Right. Thank you very much. Well, that makes around 1 hour that we're discussing. All the very best for the last 2 weeks.
Thank you.
A little bit more. As said, we've listened what you said about the fact that we have to be very Gramscist Europe-wide. That means promoting our values here in France and elsewhere in Europe helps the PvdA in Netherlands to gain credits on these shared values of promoting social justice in a sustainable way. Good luck, and for you as a number 37, but also to all the other candidates of the PvdA. For sure, we'll be back on this. One of our speakers of today, Lena Vremens, was supposed to attend it. She cannot have done it. We propose to have something after the election, maybe to address the results, to see how finally how it turns.
To discuss how the miracle happened and that we got 37 seats.
Why not? Why not? We'll do all our best to add this. So maybe we will have another discussion about Netherlands. Of course, we will be pleased we'll be very delighted to have you one more time to have this discussion. And so see you soon, and yeah, at least in the campaign trail on the internet, right?
Yes, thank you very much. I really enjoyed this conversation, and also good luck to you guys, because for me, France is a little bit like my second home. I've been coming to Nièvre, to the Morvan region all my life. My parents, they have a holiday house there. And when I talk to the people in the Morvan, our neighbors, they are really pissed at Macron. They are really, really, really pissed. My neighbor said, if he shows up here, I'll shoot him. So, I mean, this is of course sad, because people also feel sort of left out. But to me, in the end, people will choose to vote for the folks who want to build up the country and who want to deliver positive change. So hopefully for you guys, this will also lead to many more voters and support in the next elections.
Do you know who was there in the Morvan, was elected there for a very long time?
No.
François Mitterrand.
Yeah, Mitterrand. Yeah, he's from the Verra, right?
For a very long time, absolutely. Mayor, senator, and MP as well.
Yeah.
So that should give you some inspiration.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, we also have Hollande, who is also the name of another good president, but not sure it can inspire a lot of people today, even if he's done a great job.
No, but the Morvan is a beautiful region, so I love it here, and I feel very much connected with you guys. So let's stay in touch.
Yeah, great. And you also have wonderful landscape, even if it's flat. But there is so Amsterdam and all the other city around Groningen and so on are also wonderful cities that have to be discovered. I encourage our viewers and friends to discover, if they have not, or rediscover how beautiful country you have in this promotion process of, in this electoral process of promoting your PvdA candidates, right? Thank you one more time. Thanks. And see you soon.
Bye-bye. Have a great day. Ciao.